Morning, everybody, on this fine Saturday morning. And this is Heather Cox Richardson beaming to you from her YouTube channel, and Joanne Freeman beaming to you from her YouTube channel, because it appears we have figured it out. Good morning, Joanne.
It took us a little, you got to be honest, we had a minute or two this morning of technical playing, but still.
This morning, like never in any other morning, right?
Oh no, exactly. But you just were so triumphant, like we figured it out. It's like,
well, a lot of people don't know about your YouTube channel, which we always forget to talk about, because we don't necessarily integrate them terribly well. And really, in a way, it isn't really worth being here today because nothing happened this week.
No, I mean, what the heck can we talk about?
Yeah, did you like go for a run?
You will never, ever stop. And that is one of the things I love about our relationship.
Yeah, once you got that joke, you can't let it go.
Yeah,
so what the heck, as one says, apparently, just happened in that, I mean, I'd love to talk to you about how it all appears to be melting down at this moment. And by it, I mean the Trump administration.
Yeah.
But I think one has to acknowledge this split in the country, and what I really mean is among Republicans, over the increasing evidence that the man sitting in the Oval Office of the White House participated in what certainly looks like a child sex trafficking ring. And people are defending it. Certain people are defending it.
I know.
WTAF.
Right, exactly. We've now gotten to, well, was it really pedophilia? No.
I just cannot with that. Megyn Kelly, I have not engaged with any of that because I am beside myself.
No, right. Totally. And that's why, one of the words that we used as we were beaming in and being so smart that we didn't have to figure anything out this morning was the word monster or monstrous. Because certainly for me, in the last, not only the last week, but in the last week, because it's intensifying and because things do feel that they're coming apart, and because the president is behaving even more than usual as kind of a caged, backed against the wall animal, it's been particularly monstrous and nasty and hard. Even, I want to be like there and watching what's happening. And this week I actually had to sort of put the phone down or put the computer away for a little bit because it's so dark and ugly.
So interestingly you say that, because I did the same thing. I left, and by accident, I left my phone behind when I left the house 3 times this week, which I don't think has ever happened before. And I thought it was just that in many ways, I hate to say it, but where we are is a little bit boring in that, we've been doing this for 6 years. So it's not, I want something creative. I want something new. I want something interesting. I want to work on the new book. One more slide into the abyss with Donald Trump is just not a good place. But it does raise the question, I think, of why some people think that Trump's behavior is acceptable or even more admirable. And, you've talked before about Andrew Jackson and what's going on with Andrew Jackson. And I could throw in Andrew Johnson. Former presidents both, by the way, people, 1830s and the 1860s. Why do you think that and people gravitated toward both of them, but especially toward Jackson, right? Not so much in spite of his behavior, but because of it.
No, exactly. And that's the thing that is particularly striking to me, is that he basically, in a way, maybe not quite as blatantly as I'm going to state it here, but he campaigned. I mean, his public persona was...
Which he?
Oh, I'm sorry, my Andrew, not your Andrew. Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson had this persona as, the guy who won the Battle of New Orleans, a fighter, a soldier, he killed a zillion men in duels, which he didn't, but he did fight a good number of duels. I think the legend has like 100 duels. He didn't fight 100 duels, but he is a guy who,
killed the whole passel of Seminoles.
I was going to say in Florida, he massacred diplomats as well as Native Americans. And then let's not even start with the Indian Removal Act and the Trail of Tears. And as I said, his whole persona of being a guy who was barely containing his rage. And some people loved him for all of that, thought he was like the kind of leader the country needed. You know, there's a reason why he became president when he became president. And that there's like a whole, not I don't want to say cult, because I hate when we use that word and it doesn't have a meaning, but a whole kind of we love the guy ethos surrounding him above and beyond the fact that he was president. And the things that he was being loved for are all of these things that even in his time, you know, people who didn't like him would say, but he's killing people. He's, you know, they would highlight. It's not even us looking back and passing judgment. It's people at the time who understood that these things were problematic, but loved him for it. And I think, first of all, I think that says a lot about his time, right? Because if people at the time are loving him for those things, in some way he is representative of that moment, and people are supporting and voting for what they want, and that's what they want. And that says a lot about that moment in time. Probably also has to do with, you know, I'm a manly man. And, you know, I'm a leader of the sort that doesn't care about convention and does what I want. And I'm a fighter. And in his case means it literally. And if you are an important person who can break the rules or ignore the rules or violate the rules and get away with it, depending on how you're thinking, you could see that as proof that somebody is a leader or elite or above the rest of us. And for some people, that's what they want and need.
Well, but that's an interesting way to look at it, because I've always seen it as being sort of a dominance. That is, the people who support an individual like that feel that they have somehow lost out on national power, and they want they want somebody who offers to give them the kind of dominance that they crave. And you can see that certainly with Andrew Johnson as well, who comes from that sort of poor white Southerner trend in American history. The same one that Jackson comes out of, in a way, although Jackson had true money and Johnson didn't. But that idea of I've been left out, and I want something. I want economic security. I want power in the country is one thing. It does interest me, though, that there is this weird thing in the United States that I'm grappling with a lot lately. This idea that if you sign on to something like that, that you are a populist. And populism is this really slippery term that tends to mean you attract people, voters.
Masses.
Yeah, the masses. And yet you think of something like Johnson or Jackson or Trump nowadays, the people that he is empowering to dominate are actually the very wealthy, the urban dwellers, the people who need those votes from the populists, but who are never going to do anything to help those people. So I don't quite know how to think about populism in this moment. And there's also this weird overlap that you just talked about between this concept of populism. People talk about Trump as a populist, and certainly Jackson and Johnson. But where do we get the idea that poor people, or that people in the countryside are, I'm sorry, I wonder if I'll get put in the algorithm for this, are assholes? You know, that has never been
us, right? Are somehow not us, despite the fact that huge, you know, define us. But yeah, that there's a different category of person, right? I mean, maybe you'll get put in the algorithm for saying asshole, but
sorry about that. But I mean, it pisses me off as somebody who comes from a small, very small town. Like I was saying this to you before this, there many times you see prize-winning books that purport to be about rural America, and the people are all committing incest and eating each other, and they're just horrible, horrible people. And I'm like, this is a rich New Yorker's, no offense, of opinion about what it looks like to live in the country. This is not what living in the country looks like. And this, I don't know. I'm trying to grapple because of the whole concept of populism and progressivism, as if there's something different. And in my experience, people in the country are often more progressive than people who don't, and who live in the suburbs, for example. And I just feel like somehow we get all these things tangled up, and they're giving us a really bad lens through which to look at the present, where people are making assumptions about who is progressive, who is regressive, and what people are actually voting for when they vote for somebody like Donald Trump.
Right. I mean, the way that you just put it makes me think, and I'm spitballing here.
The way that part.
Pardon?
Eating each other part.
Yeah. Well, no, but it makes it sound as though populism, and the way that we're framing it here, is performative, and has that performative interest to it, so that it is trying to appeal to the masses in some way, but in a way that ultimately has no roots, has no grounding. It's just painting a kind of a picture that is appealing. The reason why it works, and the reason why it's an ism, is because people they get sucked into that idea, and built into it, as you suggested a moment ago, is an idea of superiority, that if you're going with this person who's depicting things in that way, then you are part of that superior group, that you somehow or other are above the, I'm not going to use the A word, that somehow or other you're gaining, as you put it, dominance or superiority or something. But I wonder if a main difference between populism and progressivism, which is not performative in the same way, has to do with the way in which it's focused on, more than anything else, appealing to the masses, not necessarily serving them, but appealing.
Okay. For people who don't know, Joanne's first prize-winning book was about the performance of honor in the early republic. So she's really good on this performance stuff. That's really interesting, because Jackson was performative, Johnson was not. But in this moment, well, just because Johnson's kind of his own kettle of fish. He's a fascinating character, a deeply problematic character, obviously, but he didn't appeal to the masses very well at all. But in this moment, in today's America, when we talk about populism, the degree to which it is tied up in performance, if you look at what this current White House is doing with Kristi Noem and her videos, and the Department of Homeland Security with its Nazi stuff, I mean, the constant, here we are for you in these slick videos, and the assumptions that people are making, and by people in this case I mean pundits, are making, that this does in fact appeal to a popular base. I mean, I wonder, it makes me think of the whole idea of the fact we have to have these giant trucks for, the rural Americans, but in fact, it's not the rural Americans who are buying those essentially way oversized suburban vehicles. It's people in the suburbs and in the cities who want to cosplay as somebody who, I mean, those trucks are crazy expensive. They're, I never see the kind of things I'm talking about. You don't see those in rural Maine. You just don't. They're too freaking expensive, among other things, and they're not useful.
Well, this is really interesting. I think actually it's a performative administration, just in the way you described it, putting on a show, and violence is a fundamental part of the show. It's like scripted in, literally. Needed or not, actually mostly not needed, part of the script. And the question here, maybe this gets to where we are this week, what happens if you're putting on a show and the audience isn't there for it? The audience
is watching. Go ahead.
So that's my point, is what if all of this performance, which from the beginning we've seen and been, some of us at least, screaming about, what if you're putting all your effort into putting on this show to show how important you are and how superior you are and to get everybody to support you, and then suddenly some people are not happy with that message, some people aren't falling to it anymore, the edges, the curtains being pulled up on the stage around the edges so that what's ever happening behind the curtain is being seen. If you're a political movement or administration, what does that do?
Well, I'm going to push that further. Because I don't know if you saw the story that came out in ProPublica yesterday. And by the way, ProPublica has been on fire now. I mean, they've always been great, but oh my God. about, remember the thing in Chicago where the federal agents came in a Black Hawk helicopter and hit and in these
That
giant
apartment building. Yes.
That's right. And they arrested 37 people. They took everybody out and made them stand outside, in their underpants and all that for hours. They ended up arresting 37 people, and they had this video of, and they all, they're all heads down marching along. I mean, it's a clearly scripted video. And that the Department of Homeland Security put out. They did arrest 37 people, and they went in front of the cameras and said they are all members of Tren de Aragua. They're all gang members. Well, in fact, the government didn't charge any of them. And it later claimed 2 of them were gang members. And in fact, the ProPublica writers found one of them who said, I got no criminal record. I got nothing here. And it turns out that what they did, and the ProPublica people went into the courtrooms and listened to the cases, and the government lawyers never said anything about criminal behavior. They basically said, you can self-deport or we can throw you out. It was, and what is interesting about that is that, first of all, those stories are coming out, but we are getting a different visual from people on the street. And
Right.
if you think about that and those images, and that image that came out yesterday of, I think he was a Catholic priest who was being arrested.
Down on the ground. Yeah.
I mean, talk about, I hate to say a prize-winning photo because there have been so many lately, but heavens, was that an image to counter what?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, he had written an op-ed that I read yesterday, in which he said, if you're trying to find God, you should be with me in the front lines. And that is a form of populism, real populism, that seems to be getting a lot more traction in this moment than the performative Kristi Noem on a horse.
But here's the difference, right? So we've been seeing some of that message and some photos like that, and footage from people with their phones pointed at horrific things happening. That's been out there for a while, but now it feels and looks different. And I do think that's because, the performative component of it, I think when this administration started and went right in with, performative violence, deliberately, aggressively performative, because that's part of the insult of it, right? It wasn't even bad enough that there was violence. The importance of it was, you have to see us being violent, and look at us. We're showing you how horrible and violent we are. Look how powerful we are. That because that second half of it no longer is in place, it no longer applies, it means that people pushing back look more powerful. It means that the moment that we're in, I do think the performance is no longer playing the way it did. I think there are people, if not in the way that some might want, stepping away and saying, wow, this is really bad, which they could have said 2 or 3 months ago, but regardless, I love the concept, and I guess it's getting me in my gut in the same way that the violence does that for me, and in the same way this past week has gotten it for me. There's something fundamental about the ethos or nature of this administration that has shifted, and it's not just Epstein, although that helped. There's something here that cannot be put behind the curtain in this performance. And in a way, there are any number of reasons why people in this administration are going to want Epstein files to go away. But one of them might be that the simple fact that we're talking about them and that they're out there, it's like knocking off the lights of the performance, right? Like we can't really see what you're doing back there on the stage, because in front is this other thing so I think I'm going at it in a very wordy way, but the performative component of it, the way in which that was part of the deliberate insult and attack of it, in addition to being part of the, appeal to people who wanted to feel that they had leaders who were powerful. And the fact that, as you and I started out by saying, this last week, even the two of us who are constantly tuned into what's going on couldn't, actually had to step away. There's something about that factor, and the fact that that's factoring down to people within the Republican Party that is shifting now. And as I said, it's not all Epstein, but that's a big part of it, because we started out talking before even coming on here about, we used the word monster or monsters. I mentioned that on my podcast yesterday, I titled what I did, "Who is the Monster?" And my point was, and I talked about Andrew Jackson, but my point was sometimes leaders are loved for the things that make them horrible. And that says a lot about the time that they're in, that the things that are horrible for are appealing to many people. It says more about the leader and very much about a time. But the monster, seeing someone as the monster, this is also all because I watched the new Frankenstein movie, which I think is very powerful. But regardless, I don't know. I'm going on and on because I feel in my gut that there's this performative component here, gets way down deep into something that maybe we haven't been aware of, but that contains a lot of the power of this moment.
Well, going back to the attraction of a figure like that and the idea of dominance, I mean, one of the things the Epstein files have done is they have absolutely sent Trump into a tailspin. And he does not look strong. He looks incredibly weak. And as he is madly flailing, and similarly that he's freaking out over the tariffs, the blowback to bulldozing the East Wing of the White House is starting to hit home. The popularity is slipping. His mental health isn't good. It does seem like it's harder and harder to grab hold of him as a dominant figure. Right. But that does, to go back to the populism part of this. And I want control, I want power. I mean, maybe one of the ways, and I think of the original populist movement in the United States in the 1890s at a time very similar to ours, in which not just farmers, everybody thinks it's farmers, it's wage laborers, and it's entrepreneurs who have been shut out of the system by the robber barons come together and they say, we want a fairer system here. And that is the idea of populism becoming progressivism, because
that's morphing right into progressivism, which is we want to make things better for people within society and use the government to do that, for sure.
And when you see, again, Marjorie Taylor Greene fascinates me because she is a bellwether. She clearly reads the room, and that's what she's doing here. And people are like, you don't have to, you can't believe her. I'm like, she's like Trump. You don't believe them, you watch them. And she is talking about healthcare prices and grocery prices and so on. What's that? And Epstein. And Epstein is not just, there are many layers to Epstein, but one of the reasons I think so many MAGA were so furious about it is it was the symbol of the government protecting rich and powerful people. Mm-hmm. And it does seem in a funny way that now that it is increasingly obvious that the Epstein information does indeed protect those people from every walk of life, that there is the potential for another, or to really not another political realignment, but to push a political realignment toward the people in the progressive way that it did in the past. Certainly feel it just, like I say, I realized when you were talking about a new story and lifting behind the curtain, I did not deliberately use the word boring earlier, but there is an element at which it's like, oh, I'm so over this.
It's an old show. It's the same show.
It's an old show, and it is time for a new show. It's not just I can't deal with this. I am bored with it. And it's time for a new show with new people, new cast.
Or appeal to people with a new power. I think that's absolutely true. And I think thinking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, yes, she keeps talking about the Epstein file, but at least recently, what she's talking about is it's for the women. We have to do this for the women. We have to do this for the victims. So even in her playing at that and pushing at Trump, she's doing it like that's a different show from her, right? It's a different performance from her. I like the idea, and I think I'm going to keep this idea, of using Marjorie Taylor Greene as a kind of thermometer of political ethos. Like, where are we now? Oh, like, look at, she's like really separated from him. Oh, she's focusing on this. Oh, here's where she thinks we are right now. Now, that's fascinating. I think she works really well. And I think that gets us beyond believe her, don't believe her. I don't personally believe anything that she's doing. But the fact that she's doing it is really, really revealing. That's a performance that reveals more than she knows it does.
The Marjorie Taylor Greene-o-meter.
In my classes, I talked to my students about the Jeffersonometer. Like, how's he doing this week? So we now have a greenometer.
Oh Lord, I don't even want to think of what that would look like. Well, I will say it has been a very interesting week, and I think we didn't talk about this. We don't have time now, but I do think it is. You can see a number of people examining the role of the American media. And one of the key things for the rise of the progressive era out of the populists themselves, and then the progressive era, is the rise of new media. And when you think about the coverage that stuff is getting now, from people like ProPublica, who've been here a long time, but they're getting much more visibility, Mother Jones, but also all the people on Substack and all the new independent newspapers, you're seeing stories that I just feel like 10 years ago we wouldn't have seen. So it was easier to control that performance when you didn't have people saying, hey, wait a minute, let's look behind the curtain and look at the fact that, Marjorie Taylor Greene just dumped $140 million into what appears to be a dummy company.
But here's the thing, is that we have been seeing some of this stuff for a while, and I realize we're out of time. I'll make it very fast. We've been seeing these kinds of images and getting this kind of story about what's going on for a while. What's different now is there's enough of it that it is a story, right? There's enough of it that there's an it there. It's not just, this is horrible, this is horrible. It's like, this is sustained and horrible and growing. We can see it. And it's not performative is part of it too. There's enough of it that you can't ignore it at this point. What that means, I don't know. But there's enough of it there that it's blocking out some of the light of that other show that we both just said, the old show that is no longer grabbing people in the same way. There is a new show coming from a different angle, and people are seeing it in a different way. And I think that photo, if folks haven't seen it, of a priest pushed down on the ground, his face down on the ground, that captures some of this moment.
Yeah, and it does mean that it's time to write a new story, which I hadn't thought about that, because of course I'm just eaten alive by the fact all I want to do is work on my new book. But I wonder to what degree that is a larger, maybe much wider desire, not just from me, but from a lot of people, to say, we need to turn the freaking change.
And I'll close with the thing that you and I both always say, but I want to say it right now. Who can do that change, right? Who are the people who can reach for the leaders they want, focus on the things they want, respond to the things they want? The people.
Yeah.
Populism and progressivism are both focused on the people. So in this moment, when we're kind of trying to decide what story is playing and how, they're trying to play to us. So we are actually at the center of what's going on right now. And that's worth remembering.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Joanne. I'm
Heather.
Back on the road. Hey, maybe I'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk about that afterward. And thank you for ever being here, everybody. Remember, we always forget to talk about Joanne's page, which she did again.
Thank you very much.
Joanne's YouTube page is about to be hosting her other stuff as well, which has been elsewhere.
Going to be growing very soon, and
like this next week, right?
Well, supposedly. I'm still working with some of the technical details. Might be an extra week or two, but very soon.
It's no problem, Joanne. I'll help you with the technical stuff. So everybody say goodbye to Joanne, because you'll never see her again. All right, everybody. Have a great week, and we will see you next weekend.
Love you, Heather.
Love you too, Joanne.